Hello, my friends. I am, in fact, not dead. I'm pretty sure what I had was not actually coronavirus. It was just a flu or some kind of allergy or something. My symptoms were slight fever, both wet and dry cough, a little bit of nasal blockage. But what really got me worried, at least initially, was the prolonged headaches, which is one very strong symptom of coronavirus that is not included in something like allergies or the flu. I had like a 4-day long headache. And also the fatigue and shortness of breath, which was very weird. I attempted to stream a couple times while I was sick, and I found myself huffing and puffing for no real reason. Like, I'm feeling a lot better today, but I'm still not at 100%. Any kind of prolonged physical exertion definitely tires me out a lot quicker. And after a couple of hours of just puttering around the house or attempting to do some kind of work at my computer, I definitely feel the urge to just lie down and take a short nap. Of course, this could all just be because I'm fat as well, who knows. But in the end, whatever it was that I had, coronavirus or not, I seem to be coming out of it just fine. And that being said, sorry about no weekly sip this week, or the Minecraft server, or the drought of streams over on Game Boomers this week. I've attempted to stay caught up in things, but I've just been kind of out of sorts. But you know what? Come tomorrow, I expect to be right as rain. And while I was nursing whatever it was that I happened to have, the total destruction of Bernie Sanders' campaign, at least that's how it looks to anybody who's not a diehard Bernie fan, happened last Tuesday. Here's the delegate math as it currently stands. This part here is delegates won, these two parts of the Biden and Sanders bars. And Bernie's what, like 150, 200 delegates behind Biden? However, these extra black bars, the delegates remaining part, that is what Biden and Bernie are projected to win in the states to come. So if all of these projections are accurate, Biden will end up past the 1,991 mark, and Bernie will fall short of it. For Biden to fall short of the 1,991 delegates he needed, he would have to do about 12% worse than he's currently projected to do. In this case, neither Biden nor Bernie would have a clear majority, and then it would be up to the superdelegates to decide. This would be a nightmare scenario, by the way, because it would be close enough that the DNC would give it to Biden, but also close enough that the Bernie fans could actually have a point when they scream about it being rigged. For Bernie to take the lead, Biden would have to actually underperform by about 17%. And for Bernie to actually hit that 1,991 mark, Biden would have to underperform by 21%. Now in 2016, the DNC screwed Bernie. There's no two ways about it. They wanted Hillary. The votes of the plebs didn't matter. And Bernie was simply an annoyance. This time around, though, that doesn't seem to be the case. Bernie is actually not winning popular votes this time around. And throughout my brain-addled scrolling on Twitter while I was sick, I noticed an interesting trend among Bernie voters. Oh, I should have also mentioned at the beginning, a weird side effect of those headaches was the foggy-mindedness. Like, for a couple of days there, I couldn't even, hold a coherent thought. I wasn't going insane, I wasn't demented like Biden is, nothing like that. It's more like whenever I would try to write a script, even though I was sick, I just couldn't get the words out. It's almost like my brain needed to rest as well as my body. In any case, a lot of people started going crazy over the prospect of Bernie losing democratically, not just the fact that the DNC is rigged, which, by the way, it is, obviously. I think a lot of these are from the Chapo Trap House subreddit. I agree, the CTH mods are fucking libs. Liberal is an insult to these people. If they don't ban vote blue no matter who chumps. Yeah, anybody saying to vote for Biden should be banned. I support this. Get the libs out of here. Guys, we have to appeal to the libs who are the core of this party. Get the fucking libs out of here, dude. The amount of apologists for the libs and centrists that are actively working to kill some of us because that is the end result of stopping the advancement of universal healthcare is nuts. These aren't your allies who got lost along the way. They're killing us. This is very much the attitude of, you didn't vote the way I wanted you to vote, therefore you are evil. Therefore you are Nazi adjacent or something. Stop dooming. Stop with the suicidal shit. This election is still so very far from over. And it's just an election. Bernie isn't the end goal. A better world is. There's always more work to do. There's always the next thing. This stuff really reminds me of the reaction from the entire left, every Democrat voter, after Trump won. I don't know if you guys remember it. There was all those bougie far leftist fucks who were clamoring, it's her turn! They were talking about, getting hives and rashes and screeching in pain and talking about how the United States was collapsing before their very eyes. Wild stuff. Hey everyone, there's a lot of suicide posts. A lot of them are just seeking attention, and that's okay. We see you. These are hurtful times. We shoulder it too. Some of them seem genuine, and that's okay too, but I want to encourage all of you to stick around. Yeah, guys, this isn't worth killing yourself over. It's just an election. Things will be fine. Don't do anything stupid, alright? I will say, though, that just seeking attention by being suicidal. I wouldn't end that sentence with, that's okay. One person with a gun can change the course of history. Fuck, is it worth it? I mean, my life would totally be fucked, but I could save the country from Biden. No, dude, it's not worth it. Don't do anything stupid, man. I will say this right now. None of the candidates, Biden, Bernie, or Trump, are so bad that they will cause the United States to lapse into a black hole or something. Even if your candidate doesn't win, you will be fine. Remember, Republicans had to learn this the hard way back during 2008 and 2012, and I recall back then the left just laughing uproariously at them, saying the Republicans were out of touch, they didn't have the will of the American people behind them, that their party was dysfunctional, their politics were all wrong, etc., etc., etc. And there were a lot of old guard conservatives that were legitimately having meltdowns. Who was it? Was it like Rush Limbaugh losing his shit over on Fox News, talking about how he just didn't believe the numbers that were coming in?
So I think this is premature. We got a quarter of the vote. Now remember, here's the thing about Ohio. A third of the vote or more is cast early. That is won overwhelmingly by the Democrats. It's counted first, and then you count the election day. And the question is, by the time you finish counting election day, does it overcome that early advantage that the Democrats have built up in early voting, particularly in Cuyahoga County? Now, we got to be careful about calling things when we have like 991 votes separating the two candidates and a quarter of the vote yet to count. Even if they have made it on the basis of select precincts, I'd be very cautious about intruding into this process.
Well, folks,
thanks.
So maybe not so fast.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. It's great to have you guys here.
That's awkward.
You tell me whether you stand by your call on Ohio, given the doubts Karl Rove just raised.
We're actually quite comfortable with the call in Ohio. Basically, right now, there's just too much Obama vote that's outstanding there that we know is going to come in, that is going to be Obama.
I've just called Karl back up from and he's coming up here to the desk. He's crunching numbers. He's writing furiously. He's pointing at Bill Hemmer. Joining us with his retort, Karl Rove. Okay.
I don't know if it's a retort. It's just a question, which is we have 4.5 million votes in, roughly. It seems to me that, you got a lot of votes yet to cast. We've had one instance where something was prematurely called.
You know it well.
They said this is not going to be another one of those
Maybe not.
scenarios.
But again, I'm sitting here saying I know Cuyahoga, of those 258,000 votes, it's going to be 70-30 in all likelihood.
You guys remember that stuff? Well, now it's happening to the left. So don't do anything crazy, man. The right obviously got through it, you'll get through it too. But you can't get through it if you try to kill someone. Dude, I'm done. We fucking lost. No one can fight the establishment anymore. This country is the worst. Trump is gonna let us all die of coronavirus or climate change. Bernie is too old to run again. The progressive movement is gonna be dead soon. It's been a good run. Goodbye, Bernard brethren. You don't have to be a doomer about this, man. And in fact, I would say most of your doomer mentality comes from your own indoctrination. The past 4 years under Trump have not been ridiculously bad. He's actually not Hitler, believe it or not. You are comparing reality on the ground, which has been slowly getting better over time, incrementally, under Trump, under Obama, even under Bush and Clinton. It's been slowly getting better incrementally. It's very much a 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of progression. And you're comparing that slow, long-term success to the idealistic utopia you have in your head. And that's why you're a doomer. Stop it. It's unrealistic. And then you keep seeing takes like this floating around. Listen, people are freaking out right now. Yes, the primary isn't over, but they're scared. They're worried. There's a lot of heart and heartache involved. Let them freak out. Back off. Don't lecture. Give people space to breathe. I don't care whether you're on the left or on the right. If you're having a meltdown because your side lost an election, then frankly, you need a reality check. And coddling someone like Nash here thinks, this is not how you snap somebody out of their bubble. But still, there's a lot of people like this who are just proud of their fragility, I guess. Like, OMG, I can't even. It just sounds like some more, it was her turn-ism. One guy disowned his boomer parents last night. I tried so many times to talk to them about Bernie and climate change and healthcare. They were going to go vote for Bloomberg, and now they're Biden supporters. Every time I made valid points, my mom would walk away, and my dad would smugly smile and say they are not voting for Bernie. This really reminds me of the virgin Zoomer who's crying about how their Chad boomer parents just don't care and will vote for whoever they like. But still, keep this attitude in mind. Over it, he disowned his parents. And check this one out. Everyone is thinking it. I'm gonna come out and say it. Bernie lost because of low intelligence voters. Black people voting against their own interests sunk him. We need to figure out what we're going to do about these people for 2024 to give Bernie a fighting chance. Well, first of all, I have a feeling Bernie will be dead in 2024. But look at this guy's attitude. Black people are low-intelligence voters who vote against their own interests. Look at this privileged, bougie white guy saying those nigs are too dumb to know what's good for them. I have a lot to say about Biden voters. Maybe that'll be tomorrow's video, in fact. But insofar as your average Bernie voter is concerned, this is what you get when you look behind the mask, when you pull back the curtain. Radical left progressives who want a top-down solution to the state, the economy, education, healthcare, whatever it is, they always claim to be advocating on behalf of some kind of protected group, the working class, racial minorities, LGBTQ people, whatever it is, even though a lot of them aren't actually members of that group. And should that group actually go a different way, they pitch a fit. They claim that they're not voting in their own interest, that those people are just too stupid to understand that progressivism is the savior. In actuality, they look down on the people they claim to want to help. I mean, consider this guy, David Levitt. According to his bio, he's an award-winning multimedia journalist. He has bylines at CBS, AXS, Yahoo, and The Examiner, as well as other outlets. And of course, he's a radical lefty. The only thing that's transparent about Donald Trump is his lack of morals and concern for the working class of America and the planet. All he cares about is his bank account. If the progressives were what they claim to be, this guy would 100% be on the side of the working class. And yet, David Levitt is not actually best known for his work in journalism, but rather for being a complete dickhole. This Target manager, Tory, is not honoring the price of their items per Massachusetts law. This tweet went viral. He tried to call this woman out, and boy, look at that face. She is just done with him. But he tried to call her out because there's this fancy electric toothbrush at Target, and the price tag there says 1 cent, so he wanted the actual in-box item for 1 cent, but the price tag was for the display one, the one that was already opened. Tory wouldn't give it to him, because that's ridiculous. It's still an in-box item. So he decides to take the picture, post the tweet, and be an asshole. And this tweet went viral, but not in support of him. Here's a progressive bougie fuck who's actively harassing a member of the working class. Because even though progressives claim to be advocating for the working class, they absolutely hate them. Look at this fucking tool. I just had to call the police because Target refused to sell me the toothbrush. I did not call 911. I called the business number for the police and told them it was not an emergency. The police verified Target displayed the price of the toothbrush for 1 cent. The store manager, Tory, refused to sell me the toothbrush for displayed price. The police said I need to sue them and they are making me fill out a verified report to take to court. Also, damn. Target Tory is actually kind of a cutie. But see, this is an example of a bougie progressive fuck shitting on the working class that normally he would claim to be fighting for. And really, anybody who's worked in retail knows this face. And to be honest, the whole Target Tory thing is cut from the same cloth as the new guy meme. I went over this in depth in another video, we don't have to do it again. But the author insert is the girl with the purple hair. And she's vilifying the new guy. But any normal person who reads this comic understands that the new guy's actually in the right. And she just looks like a sociopath. And there's definitely a strange dichotomy formed here. The new guy is operating fundamentally under virtue ethics, while the author's self-insert is operating under tribalism, which is why it's completely okay to laugh at that millionaire gamer bro douchebag who totally got robbed. And when the guy says, hey, how'd you like it if you were robbed? She mocks him, because virtue ethics apply to everyone, and her tribalism only applies to people she considers to be valid, I guess. But there's definitely a classist dichotomy here as well. New guy is the working class. His apron's dirty because he's actually been working at this job that they're at while she's been on her phone. Meanwhile, she seems like somebody who is working class, but is quite bitter about it. She should be living in the progressive utopia right now. She shouldn't have to be doing this minimum wage labor. She shouldn't have to be stuck in retail hell. She has the right politics. There's definitely this kind of air about the progressives. They advocate for the working class, but they would never actually want to be a member of it themselves. And when they are, they're bitter. Meanwhile, actual members of the working class, no matter how moral or wholesome they may be, they are collectively held up as an ideal by the progressives. But when they individually come into contact with a progressive, they're vilified by them. This is another example of that. I was just at a grocery store wearing a Star Wars sweater. The cashier says, "I love your sweater. What is your favorite movie?" The guy says, "The Last Jedi." And yours? The cashier says, "Oh, I hated that one. It was so censored." The censored word, by the way, is retarded. Cool. I'd like to speak to your manager about your behavior. You know, I've seen so many tweets of people saying, if you notice someone shoplifting, Don't be a snitch. Just turn around and let them do it. Because they're stealing from a big evil corporation, and they're a member of the working class. They're an oppressed minority somehow. So just shut the fuck up about it. But when it comes to actual individual members of the working class, progressives are just fine to deplatform them, try to get them kicked out of their schools or fired from their jobs. To progressivism, the working class is meant to be a useful idiot. You are never going to see some hipster soy chugger head over to a flyover state and shake the hands of a farmer or an oil rigger. It's just not going to happen. And you can see examples of this mask coming off all the time. This is from the 2016 election, but it's still kind of relevant. This is Lacey Green. Before the election, she's nothing but smiles and reconciliatory behavior. Regardless of the outcome, we are clearly a deeply divided and broken country. So much work ahead to mend, heal, and restore the you in USA. But after the election, we are now under total Republican rule. Textbook fascism. Fuck you, white America. Fuck you, you racist, misogynist pieces of shit. Good night. What happened to that healing, Lacey? Oh, it's because you only want unity, the united in USA, when it's under your ideology, your point of view. Everyone is expected to unify under progressivism and take their place within that narrative. These people preach sunshine and rainbows, but when things don't go their way, they spit venom at everyone, not just their enemies. Themselves, their friends, their allies, the people they claim to advocate for? It doesn't matter. The people have failed them. I recall that in one of Hitler's last writings, as Germany was finally crumbling at the end of the Second World War, he wrote that he actually hated the German people because they had failed him. Stalin and Mao had both said similar things about their own populations, though they said it under different circumstances, not so dramatically as during the collapse of their nation. Obviously, Lacey Green isn't Hitler. Let's not be stupid about this. But when you have an ideology that clings so rigidly to the idea of fighting for some greater good, you always have to ask what you're leaving out there. What hatred are you hiding from the world? Or even hiding from yourself? And this sort of thing definitely manifests itself as, at least in the United States, flyover state hatred. In Canada, if you're not living on or near the St. Lawrence River, it's a very similar attitude. I know in Sargon's videos about the most recent election, he's talked about the north of England in much the same way. So you get stuff like this. Ohio has been leading the nation's response to coronavirus, imposing the nation's most restrictive ban on large gatherings. Not bad for a Rust Belt backwater flyover state. Well, that is how progressives view Ohio. And again, remember back to 2016. Remember how CNN treated an Obama-voting family from Ohio that decided to go Trump.
Please welcome Dorinda and Scott Sykes, right here, all the way from Ohio. All the men in your family, your sons, everybody voted for Trump. You went down, you voted for every Democrat on the ballot, but when it came to the presidency, what'd you do?
I didn't vote for anybody.
You didn't vote for anybody?
Nobody.
But you are a woman.
And
you are a Democratic woman. And Hillary Clinton, as best I can tell,
is
a woman. I don't get it.
He's talking about them like they're from Iraq or something. All the way from Ohio, you guys. These are your countrymen, dude. It's not like they're from an uncontacted tribe and you're bringing the light of civilization to them or something, but you see this shit all the time. Got mad thinking about how many beautiful places exist in the world. Meanwhile, I'm stuck in bumfuck Wisconsin working with 40 to 60-year-old white cishet boomers who can't wash their own fucking hands once a day, let alone aim correctly at a toilet or clean up after themselves. Jesus Christ. These people hate themselves. And they hate themselves because they were sold on the progressive vision, and yet they didn't make it out of their small towns. They didn't get to New York or to LA to pursue that dream. They are the working class, and that's why they hate themselves. Because they've always wanted to advocate for the working class, but never actually be a part of it. And it's not just tweets. This was published again right after Donald Trump got elected. America is held hostage by flyover states. I recall a tweet, I can't find it anymore, but it was of a person who was screaming that the only reason Donald Trump won was because of people who voted who don't actually live anywhere that matter. Well, where they live matters to them. And it certainly matters to the structure of the nation. It just doesn't matter to you. Because you privilege your progressive urban centers over the countryside. And then across the pond, you've got articles like, why the term white working class is so problematic. And it's a myth that Labour has lost the working class. Articles like these, because they're centered in the UK, talk primarily about Brexit, and not Trump's election or Bernie's defeat. But it's still the same fundamental idea. There is a core demographic of people who are both disenfranchised and white. But because the progressives constantly play the race game, they can't accept that view of the world. To them, white people must always have power and privilege. So when there is a group of people that are both disenfranchised and white, whether that's Americans living in the Rust Belt, Canadians living in the prairies, or Brits living in North England, the progressives feel a moral imperative to ignore that demographic, to try and browbeat them into submission, to guilt them into voting their way. But it just doesn't work. And like I said, same thing in Canada. People whining about Trudeau and donuts, my god. This is exactly why I don't ever want to go into politics. I didn't work 90 hours a week for 20 years to live by the standards of some gormless, toque-wearing human cigarette butt from Who Even Cares, Saskatchewan. If you want to know why people in the Canadian prairie provinces, like for example Saskatchewan, no longer vote Liberal, this is why. But that pesky working class just will not vote Socialist. They keep voting against their own interests, or at least that's how the progressives see it. Which is why you get people like this. Do we still think we can use liberal democracy as a way to establish socialism and then communism? That's what it's always been about for them. They want to undermine democracy and then impose socialism on the population. They're very open about it. And if they can't do that, then they'll just do away with democracy and impose it by force, or at least try to. The result has to be political violence at this point. Debates and talking about problems have failed. It's time to just dig the problems out by the roots and impose a left-wing government. This is how they view it, guys. They view politics as this sliding scale where the more left you are, the more good and righteous and pure you are. And everything that is good is on the left, and everything that is evil is on the right. So if those pesky plebs won't do the right thing, then the progressives, viewing themselves as their moral superiors, their inherent betters, will impose the proper politics upon them from down high. Now, a lot of those tweets and articles were regarding either the Brexit vote or the Trump victory, but insofar as Bernie's impending defeat is concerned, they're saying the exact same things. A violent revolution may become inevitable. The working class are getting pushed and pushed to the brink more and more. I can't see how if life-saving policies don't get passed, it won't be a bloodbath. Well, the thing is, the working class don't actually agree with you. They will likely vote Trump again. It's only the bougie inner-city socialists that want this kind of violent revolution. And they are simultaneously delusional about the chances of it actually happening, and angry at those they view as beneath them for not doing what they say and revolting on command. Cowardice wins the day. The establishment has convinced too many people that things aren't allowed to get better, that they should get in line and be thankful for the table scraps they're given. The cowardice would be sad if it weren't so repulsive. This is how they view the working class, not capable of voting for their own interests or doing the right thing. Now you get some people, like this young woman, who actually believes the propaganda, who is a true believer of the socialist dream, and whose heart is in the right place. They just want to help people.
Like, he's been doing this his
Maybe
whole
we
life.
can set up a dinner
And
someday.
he's 70
Maybe we can all go out to
years
dinner
old.
someday with them. That
Who
would be
is?
So, remember that restaurant we ate
Bernie
at? That he
Sanders.
ate?
Bernie,
Remember the restaurant we
if
ate?
he loses, you're going to be devastated.
Oh my god.
He just wants to help people and nobody lets him help.
Well, that's
But you'll notice that most of the reactions, especially the reactions from people who aren't, 18, they're not reacting with sadness like the world's coming to an end. They're reacting with sometimes resignation, a lot of the times hatred, definitely threats of violence. That is what this is to them. Socialism calls for a revolution, and by God, they will have it, with or without the working class that is supposed to revolt. According to a study, liberals who learned about white privilege became less sympathetic to poor whites, but their attitudes towards poor blacks remained unchanged. This probably also works along gender lines, or religious lines, or LGBTQ lines or something as well, where learning about intersectional theory basically prevents progressives from feeling sorry for people who legitimately have it bad in one way because they have this hypothetical privilege in another way. I assume that's why you get posts like this.
So, we wanted to go to see a temple, but guess what? I'm on my period and entrance to menstruating women is strictly forbidden. Because, what's going on down here is completely unholy and very dirty.
I'm too tired to say anything about this white woman. See, this is legitimate, institutional, patriarchal sexism. And yet because it's from a brown culture and she has the privilege of being white, she's no longer deserving of social justice sympathy. It's also why you get stuff like this. Straight black men are the white people of black people. Their blackness doesn't matter. They might as well be white because they're not also LGBTQ. Right now, the left is undergoing this massive identity crisis. You've got the social justice warriors, the progressives, the socialists on one side. You've got the shit-heel neo-libs on the other. And the actual center-left liberals have been entirely abandoned. The Democratic Party in the US, the Liberal Party in Canada, the Labour Party in the UK, and all of these other leftist parties no longer present a cohesive vision for the electorate. There is no longer a unifying goal among the left. Political support from what was the left's guaranteed base 20 years ago, like the working class, or political liberals, or racial and sexual minorities, it's all bleeding away. It's no longer clear that left-wing parties or activist movements are listening to the people they should be representing, let alone having their best interests at heart. And we can absolutely pin this on intersectionality. It has made the left hate the working class it is supposed to stand up for. Sometimes they just don't believe that they're disadvantaged at all, maybe because they're white or some other arbitrary characteristic. Sometimes it's because they only view the working class as a means to an end. They are meant to be the backbone of the revolution, as it has been written by Marx. And if they refuse to play that role, they're bootlickers, they're fascist traitors of the highest order. They are proof that liberals are simply handmaidens to fascism, that everything that is not strictly communist or socialist is fundamentally fascist. Seriously, look up the term liberal handmaiden on Twitter. You get shit tons of tweets like this. It's kind of incredible how they think. They believe that liberalism is just fascism with a veneer over it, because liberals, if forced to choose between only fascism or communism, often end up choosing fascism. Not understanding that it's not because the liberals are fascists. It's because as bad, as horrible, as truly awful as fascism is, communism is still worse. Fundamentally, the progressive left views the working class as infants, as children to be shepherded, controlled, talked down to, and educated, to be taught how those in proper society think, speak, feel, and most importantly, vote. However, those in proper society, those young progressives, they still didn't come out and vote for Sanders. The Bernie fans are mostly young voters, and the polls from these recent primaries are showing that they're just not showing up. Bernie just doesn't have the actual support this time around. To be honest, there's probably a lot of Bernie fans out there who really wanted him to win, but when it came time to actually vote, they probably sat at home and said, someone else will do it. To be fair, that's probably why they like Bernie in the first place. Yeah, I've heard the argument that, young people don't have time to wait in line, they have school and jobs. You know what? You don't think 40-year-olds have jobs? If you want your candidate to win, you gotta show up and vote. Simple as that. But ultimately, the working class, whom the progressives pay so much lip service towards, is simply moving on from progressivism. It's moving on from socialism. And I think the best take of all comes from our good friends over at Polygon. The controversial horror satire The Hunt, featuring rich liberals hunting red staters for sport, is out of touch and struggling for relevant humor. This is a schlocky political horror flick that is exactly as it sounds. Rich, left-leaning privileged people from the coastal cities pay for the opportunity to go to a flyover state and murder rednecks for fun. The very same privileged coastal elites that this movie is making a parody of is now working over at Polygon, complaining that the movie is out of touch and struggling for relevant humor. Oh no, there is a lot of relevant humor in this film. It's not a very good film, but it's funny. Your complaint is that it exposes you to be the villain. That was the same fundamental complaint with The Joker, or with any other games or movies or shows or whatever it happened to be, where it was the progressives that ended up being evil. Whenever somebody crafts a narrative that displays your excess for all to see, you may whine and scream and cry about it, but the working class that watch it, the people that you claim to be courting but consistently fail to do so, yeah, they'll watch it and enjoy it. If it's got a comedic slant like this one does, they'll laugh at it. But most importantly, they'll identify with it. In much the same way that you want black characters or LGBTQ characters in movies and things so that people can identify with them and feel empowered. Bits of media like this make the working class actually feel empowered. It makes them feel heard, even in some small way. And that's fundamentally why you object. The left always thought that it would have the working class in their back pocket, and so they stopped providing for them. But the working class is not as stupid as you think they are. If the left won't give them what they need, they'll go somewhere else. They'll get it from somebody else. So no, it's not the case that the working class is no longer voting in their best interests. It is, in fact, that the left no longer acts in their best interests. And so, they vote accordingly.